Mothers are meant to care for their children, to be a guide, a teacher, a caregiver, and the person who provides us with safety in the first stages of our lives. Many cultures hold them in high regard for the life they bring into the world, but some mothers can be horrible. Some to the point that we disown them. A chill goes down our spine, or a red rage fills our vision at the thought of them. One mother, one very famous mother, ensured that all would know how horrible she is, and she would pay the consequences of her sins against her children for the rest of eternity. La Llorona. Hello everyone, and welcome to Wicked Encounters, where we explore just what goes bump in the night. I'm your host, Allie, and today we're going to talk about La Llorona. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that right. I tried listening to the correct pronunciations of her name, but I'm also someone who used to call the band Evanescence Evanescence, so I'm doing my best, I swear. La Llorona is a legendary figure in Mexican and southwestern folklore who is said to haunt the rivers and lakes in search of her drowned children. But who is La Llorona, and where did her story come from? We're going to explore the origins and variations of this chilling tale, as well as some of the cultural and historical influences that shaped it. Is she a real ghost, a myth, or something else? La Llorona translates to the Weeping Woman. She is a vengeful ghost from Mexico with many, many different versions to her tale. To be honest, her tale is so varied that not only does it change from which region you're in, but from which city or neighborhood you're in too. One of the common versions of her lore is that she was a beautiful Mexican woman whom many men were infatuated with. Despite all their attempts, she rejected each and every one of them until a man rode into town who captured her attention for his beauty and grace matched hers. They married almost immediately, and from their union they had 2 children. Alas, with a love that is only skin deep, it is of little surprise that one day the man rode in with another, younger woman on his steed, straight to his wife, and told her that he was pledging his life to his new love, for she was no longer the beauty she once was. Great guy, am I right? Granted, she wasn't any better, considering she only loved him for his looks, so they pretty much both sucked. In a fit of rage, she took their 2 sons to the river in the middle of the night under the pretense of a simple bath, and drowned them as revenge towards her husband. Pretty harsh, in my opinion. I'd have just killed the pretty boy, but maybe I'm not the best person to ask in this situation, to be honest. Children? Not really my thing. Especially more than one. Then you go from having a spawn to having a brood, and I'm not down for that. Anywho, once the red rage had left her eyes, La Llorona realized what she had done as she looked down at her dead sons, and she wailed in sorrowful regret at her actions before drowning herself to be with them. Actions have consequences, though, especially such heinous ones as this. La Llorona was not granted peace. She was cursed to roam the earth looking for her boys, or their bones, unable to find them. Don't worry, though. La Llorona isn't picky. Your children's bones will do. Or perhaps your own. She'll rip them out from your skin, one by one, and boo! Did I getcha? No? Maybe next time then. Now this is a tragic tale. Even I, someone who views children as hellspawns, knows this is horrible. Her children had done nothing wrong, and I still believe that Pretty Boy could have been killed just as easily and hidden just as quickly. And no one cares as much when an adult dies, but a child? 2 of them? Oh, people are going to notice real quick, especially when they died at the hands of their mother. Mothers in many Hispanic cultures are held in high esteem. To have one kill their children is unthinkable. But also, imagine being told this tale as a child, as so many Latino children are. It's not exactly a great bedtime story with a happy ending. Yet this version of the tale is incredibly common, and the majority of the La Llorona tales do involve her killing her children, and looking for others to replace them. I actually have a coworker who was originally from Mexico, and asked them if they knew of the myth of La Llorona, to which they immediately said they had, and that it is no myth but a true story of a woman who had drowned her kids since they were bad all of the time and she finally had enough of them. This version takes the story's focus from the husband being the reason for La Llorona snapping, and moving it to the children and making it easier, in my opinion, to make poorly behaved brats have the fear of God put in them real quick. That's a main element to this legend. It includes a fear tactic to caution the listeners away from dangerous outcomes. La Llorona is said to take children to replace her own, but there are also versions where she attempts to lure drunk men by the river to her so that she may kill them. For children, the lessons can be varied from staying away from rivers at night, not crying so much, and behaving for their parents. La Llorona typically lurks around rivers at night, but at times she'll leave the waters for particularly naughty children. For drunks? Well, you shouldn't be drunk near a river. That's basically the entire lesson summed up in 7 words. Rivers can be dangerous if you're not careful while sober, and during the day. Being drunk and at night? Okay, so you want to slip on some rocks and drown, I guess. Hey, you do you, my guy. However, I won't simplify the complexity of La Llorona's stories to such simple lessons. She has many more that run deep into Mexican history, as she herself does. You see, La Llorona is a rare tale that is based both in myth and notable historical events. La Llorona's myth-based origins come from one of the more brutal pantheons, the Aztecs. Let's get something cleared up real quick. Did the Aztecs take part in human sacrifices? Yes. But was it a part of everyday life for them? Highly doubtful. Remember that history is written by the victors, and in this case, the victors were the Catholic Spaniards who would want to portray the Aztecs as barbaric and brutish as a whole. Doubt me? Paganism. Just look at what happened with paganism. Spanish missionaries were very good at converting Mesoamerica into Christianity. They used chronicles to recast previously revered gods into demons, which was very easy for them to do when a particular god was depicted as a snake. Speaking of snakes, human sacrifices were given to the Great Mother Coatlicue, the earth goddess, creator, and destroyer, who wore a long dress of tangled rivers and drowning men, or writhing serpents depending on who you ask. One of her daughters was named Ciacoatl, who along with oh god, these names are hard. Bear with me, I'm trying my best. Quetzalcoatl created the current human race by grinding the bones from the previous ages and mixing it with his blood. Ciacoatl was the deity of fertility and the patron for women who died in childbirth, which at the time was viewed as similar to warfare, and these women were honored as those who died during battle. These women became known as the Cihuateo, skeletal-faced women like Ciacoatl, who would haunt crossroads and steal children. See, it took a bit, but do you see the connection? La Llorona stealing kids, ghostly skull-faced women stealing kids. I can make it connect even better for you here. Now, in urban settings of the Empire, it was said that Ciacoatl would wander the canal wearing a cradle board on her back with no child, but an obsidian flint knife, a knife used for sacrifices. Why? Well, Ciacoatl had a son, Mixcoatl, whom she abandoned at a crossroad. When she went to retrieve him, he was gone, and replaced with that knife. Now she weeps and wails for her lost child, looking for him. Well, when missionaries saw Ciacoatl, they morphed her from a goddess to a pale, white spirit, crying for her child that she lost, and changed her name to La Llorona. For something that's a bit more based in history, there's a version of her story that involves La Llorona's man being a Spaniard who promised to marry her. The only thing she truly got from him were their 2 sons and a broken heart. This version of the story was very popular when conquistadors were making their way through America back in the 16th century. You see, the conquistadors had a habit of sampling the local flavors. Many women would be swept off their feet for these foreigners thanks to their promises of a better life, riches, titles, and luxury. You know, the typical talk that leads from the streets and into the sheets, you know what I'm saying? Before they would be abandoned when the Spaniard grew bored of them, or when it became an inconvenience to keep seeing them. At times, these women would be left with children, whom they would be solely responsible for. La Llorona's story was a warning for young women to not fall for these men with their false promises like the ghost had. If they did, there's a chance they would go mad enough to kill their children. At times, This version of the tale is actually attributed to a woman that we do know existed back then. La Malinche. La Malinche, potentially born as Malinchen and baptized as Marina, had perhaps one of the most interesting and incredibly controversial lives in history. Born an Aztec princess, sold a Mayan slave, and dying as a Spanish doña, and deemed one of the most powerful tools in Hernando Cortez's army. Hernando Cortez, who was a man whose lust for God, gold, and glory was legendary. As he took over the Mayan and Aztec lands, La Malinche was there as his translator. You see, La Malinche had an incredible gift for language, easily being able to learn the languages of the Aztec and Mayan Empire. And once Cortez arrived and his men obtained her and 19 other women as slaves, she learned Spanish just as easily, which Hernando Cortez used to quickly take over Mesoamerica. She participated in every major event in the Mexican conquest, making Cortez say that next to God, she was the most important element in his success. After the Aztecs were conquered, she gave birth to Cortez's son, Martin, who is viewed as one of the first mestizos, a person of mixed Spanish and indigenous people that make up Mexico's population as we know it today, with some saying that La Malinche is the mother of the Mexican people. Some say this. The opinion that people have of La Malinche is as extreme as Republicans versus Democrats in how strong they stand against one another, with some people viewing her as a traitor to her people with how she assisted Cortez and even birthed his first son, and others viewing her as a victim, a woman who was born into an incredibly patriarchal society, who was doing what she was told to stay alive and potentially prevent a prolonged war that could have resulted in even more deaths. For those who viewed her as a traitor, there was a story that cropped up saying that when Cortez was going to return to Spain with their son Martin, but not La Malinche, she took a sacrificial dagger and plunged it into Martin's heart before doing the same to herself. Now this isn't true, as La Malinche died in Spain as a doña, but the story shows just how deeply the hatred ran for her. She began to become referred to as La Llorona herself among some groups in Mexico, as a spirit who cries for the children she betrayed, the children being the people of Mesoamerica that she betrayed by assisting the Spaniards. The main takeaway from La Llorona that I see is to be careful. Be loyal to your family and to care for your children and do right by them. Also, don't trust foreigners during the 1500s. But what do you think? Do you know any tales of La Llorona? How do you feel about La Malinche? As someone who is not of Hispanic descent, I can't form an opinion on her. She's not really for me to judge, and I can see where both sides of the argument are coming from in regards to her from a bystander's view, but I don't have the cultural nuances to truly understand the argument entirely. But I'd still love to hear what others have to say on the matter. Do you want me to explore other ghosts and spirits? And if so, which ones? If you liked this video and want to see more, maybe see about subscribing? Maybe hit the bell notification if you're feeling particularly giving? I had fun looking into La Llorona, and I hope you had fun learning more about her. With that, I'm Allie, this is Wicked Encounters, and I'll see you next time. Bye!